Hey, welcome back, friends. Welcome to day 27 of going through the Gospel of Mark. Today we are looking at Mark chapter 14 and the story of the Last Supper. And also made into a famous painting, which you could Google these days and say, like, look for video chat Last Supper. And there's all the people in the painting are like broken down into video chat bubbles, and it's just Jesus in the room alone. It's pretty fun. Well, when Jesus actually had his Last Supper with the disciples, his closest followers, what he does is pretty amazing. And let me read this to you. He says, one second here. It says, while they were eating, Jesus took bread, and when he had given thanks, he broke it and gave it to his disciples, saying, "Take it, this is my body." Then he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank from it. "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many," he said to them. "Truly I tell you, I will not drink again from the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new in the kingdom of God." And then it says, when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. So this is where Jesus institutes the Lord's Supper, as we would call it, or the Eucharist or communion. He says, "This is my body." He takes some bread and he says, "This is my body, take it." And then he takes a cup and he says, "This is my blood of the new covenant," the new promise of what God is going to do in the world. And he says, "Take this, drink." And so he's saying, this is what, and he's been telling them that I'm going to give my life for you. And what's really significant about this, two things stand out to me. One is that this actually is centered around the Jewish festival of the Passover. So Jesus and his followers are in Jerusalem and they're celebrating Passover, the Passover meal. And the Passover festival is a celebration from years and years earlier when Moses led the people of Israel out of slavery in Egypt, and God had delivered them and rescued them from slavery and brought them into the promised land. And so in what Jesus is doing, he's establishing, saying, hey, and the connection is very clear. He's saying he's the better deliverer. He's better than Moses, and he's going to lead us into a greater freedom than Moses led his people into. And so I love that picture of, again, this deeper, wider, greater that Jesus is accomplishing through his death on the cross. And then the other thing is that he gives us the bread and the cup, and he says, "Take this, drink." And in Matthew's gospel or Luke's gospel, he says, "Hey, do this in remembrance of me." So he's saying he's giving us this as a meal to remember him by, as to do this together. It says, "In remembrance of me." And so the churches throughout history and churches around the world today, we remember Jesus by taking communion together, by taking the bread and the wine and taking his cup. I think the early Christians did it as a meal, but now we do it as to remember. We take the bread and we take the cup to remember who he is and what he's done, what he's accomplished for us, and what he is still accomplishing. We know that we're in the kingdom of God, and it's coming in fullness. And so the other thing that really stands out to me, other than the connection to the Passover and how this is the greater deliverance and freedom, is that it's a meal. It's not a new religious system of rules. It's so simple. And in many ways, it's like Jesus saying, hey, you're welcomed at the table. And I think that's the message for all of us today. He's saying, hey, I'm welcoming you to the table, and I'm not just going to give you a meal. I'm going to give you myself. And so, yeah, bless you guys.